If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, and tonight I'm joined by Jeff MD, Randy Nance, and Khalid Muhammad, who will join us on stage in just a minute. Tonight we're going to be discussing Post-9 2.0, complex coordinated attacks, and militias and community defense, essentially civilian-led security for your neighborhood, and how communities can organize for everything from patrols to mutual defense and intelligence sharing. However, before that, as y'all know, we're working with Noble Gold. Check this chart out. This thing just, there's no end in sight for this. A year ago today, gold was at $2,710 an ounce. Today, it's $4,350 an ounce. We have some Guardians, some Survival Dispatch Guardian members who invested with Noble Gold, put a portion of their IRA into this gold-backed IRA, and this is the type of return that they've seen. It's phenomenal. People in the financial industry that I know, take it for whatever it's worth because I'm not in the financial industry, have said that it's highly likely that gold will just continue to skyrocket. And as soon as Trump announces that he wants to back our dollar, the fiat dollar, with gold, Bitcoin, and oil, the sky is really the limit. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not an investment guy. And as they say, you typically buy on the way down, not the way up. But there's a long ways to go up as far as gold is concerned. At least that's what all the experts are telling me. And we haven't done work with gold companies. I'm not big on working with gold companies, to be quite frank, because it's not in my wheelhouse. But from a survival and prepping perspective, if you can take a portion of your retirement savings, put them into something like this, where you actually have something tangible, as opposed to being subject to the stock market going up and down like a toilet seat, I'd like to have some tangible stuff. Also, when we signed up with these guys, instead of Kevin Sorbo being there, it was Charlie Kirk. And I spoke to a couple of people on Charlie Kirk's team, and they said, you know what, Noble Gold Investments are the bomb. These guys are honest. They do a great job. So noblegoldinvestments.com, give them a call, reach out to them on their website. They'll guide you as far as taking a portion of your retirement from your 401k or IRA, moving it into a gold-backed IRA, and hopefully continue to ride the lightning, for lack of a better term. So with that out of the way, the rumors of Randy Nance's demise were greatly exaggerated. As you can see, he's directly below me. He has a fantastic story to tell. He was this close to getting the biggest buck, but somebody else's gun didn't cooperate with him. Randy, tell us quickly about your trip so people have an idea how close you came to how big this buck was.
Well, I'll just say that, it was one of the hardest hunts I've ever been to. This particular area in Utah, they have a bunch of lava pours that are huge, and the deer use those strategically. Clearly, they've been doing it for generations. However, it took all week to finally start finding some deer. And when it all came out, shook out, I did have the best shot at what everybody described as, and one of the guys there has been hunting these deer for 30 years. And they haven't seen one this big before in their entire life. And I missed. That's the short of it. There's no sense of making excuses. There's a lot that probably played into it. But the fact is, it was 365 yards right in front of me. It was broadside looking right at us. And somehow I missed that animal. So, and no one else got one even half that size throughout the entire trip. So,
well, it gives you a good excuse to go back next year.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I know right where he is, if he makes it that long.
Right on. That last little bit of hair in your beard will be 100% gray by then, right?
Oh, it will be. Yes.
He told us before we went live. He hasn't been able to sleep since then. He's so upset.
No, man. I wake up all night thinking about that buck. Like, geez.
So I'm sorry to hear that, Randy, but there's always next year. So
That's right.
let's get to the conflicted question of the night first, because Khalid has some major updates for us, by the way. So here we go. If you're not familiar with this, conflictofthegame.com, 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic conditions, typically some element of morality involved, hence the name Conflicted. Throughout the ages, crimes were committed in the name of faith in every part of the world. Once modern society collapsed, Rahab, a religious leader, and his followers took the opportunity to spread their beliefs and consequences throughout the state. How do you think religious extremists will act after the collapse of modern civilization? I think that might kind of depend on who the religious extremists are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Big factor there. But Khalid, I'm just going to go straight to you right away for updates on this so-called ceasefire between Afghanistan and Pakistan. They're not agreeing.
Oh my God! I mean, I have never seen a government so easily duped. I have had, I've had all kinds of problems with the government of Pakistan, with the Pakistani army, about how we handle counterterrorism here. We had the Taliban on the ropes. I mean, we had them on the damn ropes. And the government decided that we're going to listen to Qatar and we're going to listen to Turkey, two major sponsors of terrorism. We went and our government went and sat down with the Taliban in Doha. And I had a problem with Doha because that's the Taliban's command and control center. They went and they sat down with them there. They negotiated a ceasefire where the Taliban in the agreement said that we will not allow any terrorism from our soil to go into Pakistan, which was a farce to begin with because all of it's coming from Afghanistan into Pakistan. As soon as the negotiation team came back to Pakistan, Mullah Yaqub, the defense minister for Afghanistan, decided he was going to do a PR swing. First, he turned around and got the Qatar government to remove the word border from the press release they issued. So all of a sudden, the border became the question, whether Pakistan and Afghanistan have a border, where it is internationally or not. Secondly, they turned around and he went on TV and in Qatar, went on TV and said, well, you know, the Taliban and the Baloch Liberation Army aren't really terrorists in our point of view because, well, they're not fighting Afghanistan. So they're not really terrorists. And this is being used as a political phrase because they're against Pakistan. In the meantime, we have had something in the neighborhood of 7 attacks inside of Pakistan since this quote unquote ceasefire was signed. Now, we have heard, I've said this before, and it's pretty well documented on our website, where we have said that the Taliban is scared to death of the TTP. Back in June of 2022, the leader of the TTP, Nur Wali Masood, threatened the Taliban and said, if you tell us to stop carrying out attacks against Pakistan, we'll switch over to ISKP and we'll leave the Taliban, which is kind of funny because your entire support base is Al-Qaeda. The same conversation happened again in 2023 when the Taliban put pressure on them again to stop the attacks inside of Pakistan. Again, the same threat was made. But at that point, Haqqani and Hamza bin Laden had formed the Islamic Army. So it didn't matter which side your bread was being buttered on. You were still part of their team. Right now, the problem is that Pakistan is, and this is the argument I had with the armed forces today, Pakistan is trying to decide whether we should break the ceasefire or not. My point of view was very simple. We don't need to launch drone strikes. We can send in strike teams. We can send in commando teams and take out who we need to take out, starting with Yaqub because he's a piece of junk and he needs to go to hell. And what is funny is that his father, Mullah Umar, the founder of the Taliban, held one belief that if someone attacks Pakistan, we defend Pakistan. And now his son is decided that, you know, we can attack Pakistan as much as we want. And these aren't terrorists. Well, okay, we'll teach you what terror looks like. We've carried out a number of operations in the tribal region here in Pakistan. A lot of TTP fighters have been taken out. They blew up a gas line the other day, which really pissed a lot of us off. one thing that I have to highlight is a lot of us Pakistanis that are patriots to the country have that video of them torturing our soldiers and dragging them through the streets naked still fresh in our minds. And we haven't gotten our revenge for that yet. Until we get our revenge, our blood's not going to cool down. And the argument I had with the army this morning was, you guys basically screwed us. We had the Taliban broken. We had the Taliban pushed. And we could have taken down the regime if we kept going. We could have taken the regime out. But because you guys decide to listen to terrorists, being Qatar and Turkey, you automatically turned around and said, well, okay, well, we'll give an immediate ceasefire. Now, there's another ceasefire meeting on the 27th of October in Istanbul. I really hope the government turns around and says, you know what, you guys either take control of your situation or we will, because Pakistan is furious. The country itself is not ready to accept this. And we've all called for the defense minister's resignation. We've all called for him to be forced out because he was the lead negotiator on the ceasefire. But we want this done. And in terms of Qatar giving Pakistan anything, we've never taken a dime from Qatar. Qatar's been supporting the Taliban financially, militarily. All kinds of things have gone to Qatar, from Qatar to the Taliban. And we're not interested in listening to the Qataris anymore. I mean, Qatar is the bank for every terror organization. They have Hamas sitting inside of Doha. They have the Taliban sitting inside of Doha. They support the Muslim Brotherhood, which is basically Al-Qaeda. We have no point in listening to them. Erdogan, I really don't have a lot of respect for right now, because when Doha changed the press release, Turkey should have stepped up. Saudi stepped up immediately, issued a fresh press release on their side, and said, no. The border is the border, and the problem is terrorism. Qatar has not made that same clarification, and neither is Turkey, which has really pissed us off on the Qatar side. So that's where we stand right now.
Quick question, Khalid. I've had a crazy busy day, but I saw something on X that said that the Pakistani government is refusing to classify the TTP as terrorists. Is that true, or is that just something?
That's not true. No,
Okay.
that's not true.
Who's promoting that then?
We've already classified them as terrorists. The U.S. has declared them as foreign terror organization. The Baloch Liberation Army has also been declared a foreign terror organization by the U.S. government. There's no stepping back from this. A lot of what you're seeing right now on X, there are a lot of people that are using Pakistani names or Pakistani organization names, and they're actually Alanis or Indians, and they're going after our national spirit, which is going to create a lot more problems, which is why we're waiting for Elon to put up that country of origin on X so we can see where these accounts really are.
Well, that's precisely why I asked, because I just thought that can't be right. But I saw a bunch of people promoting that thought. So, all right, we'll move into the sit rep then. We've got a handful of things here. By the way, I left the conflict question up because I think I forgot to mention the four of us will answer this question at the end for those of you who are new to our podcast, but we'd love to see your answers in the live chat. So the first one up here, and every time I've watched this video, my watch has gone off saying I have an abnormally high heart rate. So it's probably going to go off here again in a second. But leftists cheer and high five a masked child stabbing an effigy of President Trump. Just imagine the media outrage if kids of Trump supporters did the same thing with a Kamala doll. 1 minute and 2 seconds. I'm going to play the whole thing, but the parents of this child, there has to be some element of accountability at some point. So it goes on from there, and I'm not going to play any more than that because it makes my blood boil. My watch already went off once, but I actually want to hear each of your thoughts on that. Clete, I'll go to you first since you're center stage.
Any parent that allows that needs to be shot. I mean, no, because look, Chris, what you do at the foundational level with the child will grow with them as they grow up. So they'll decide that this is okay to, hate the president, whoever, if you don't like him.
Congratulations. We made it 15 minutes into the podcast before Khalid said somebody needs to die. Well done. And I actually have a new tool beside me that I'm going to show you in a second, but I want Jeff and Randy to weigh in on this. Jeff, I mean, this kid's clearly a product of his environment, but how do we even address stuff like this? You're on mute, Jeff. Jeff, you're on mute. Jeff, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I have two mutes. That's my problem. Now, remember, all the violence is on the right.
Yes,
the left are just peaceful, tolerant people. It's only those evil Christian nationalists, white supremacists, and conservatives. Now, this is typical. I mean, I hate to say this. This is the left. They complain about violence on the right, violent rhetoric, not actual violence, because there isn't any.
Mm-hmm.
But then they do this shit, and they encourage this stuff, and you wonder why is there so much violence on the left? It's because they fertilize it and grow it like freaking wheat.
Yeah. What a mess. I mean, I could have never imagined that we'd be in this type of situation. Randy, what are your thoughts on people who raise their children to behave like this? How can we ensure that there's some element of consequences? And you're on mute too, by the way.
Yeah, I'm glad you told me that.
No problem.
Well, it's it's funny. You like all these the Kings rallies, right? And now they're so proud of themselves. See, they weren't violent. We had a protest and it wasn't violent. Yeah, it's because the median age was about 74. It's all old people that are all at all these No Kings rallies. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I mean, isn't it a federal crime to threaten the president with violence or something to that effect, or say that's the same thing? And you can imagine if one of our kids, and we hung up an Obama, I won't use Kamala because that's not their leader. We put up Obama and start stabbing him like that, boy, they would probably come out of the woodwork to arrest you before you even left the property.
No kidding.
But we don't do anything about it, and it's a sad day when you see stuff like that. And there's a kid up there now that looks like he's probably in his early teens at the most. Mm-hmm. And people are cheering him on for him to do this, and I hate to say it, but I think Khalid's right. And people say, well, that's un-American. No, it's not. No, it's not. We've always
but neither was what he was doing. That wasn't American either.
That's right. Well, that's what I'm saying. We've always done that. Just because we've gotten a little softer in these last few decades. No, we used to kill people that did that kind of thing. That's what we did.
Well, there was something in upstate New York going on this past weekend, and there was an older guy, I want to say like 65, late 60s maybe, and he had an 86-47 shirt on, and there were some guys at whatever this rally was, and they said, hey, what's that shirt mean? And they knew what it meant. They just wanted to hear the guy say it. Yep. And the guy says, well, kill the president. And they said, what do you mean? Well, and the guy says, well, Donald Trump's the 47th president and he needs to be killed. And so one of the guys, before he says anything back, he says kind of, what's your name again? The guy rips off his whole name and everything. And he said, I'm glad that we caught that on video, because you can't just run around saying that you want to kill the president of the United States. And this old guy went off like you wouldn't believe on these younger guys. I mean, if he had got smacked upside the head, he would have deserved that and 10 times more probably. So pretty despicable behavior. It's reprehensible behavior. So Khalid, before we go to your next one, I do seriously have something here for you. And I showed it to the Guardians earlier today. This is pretty awesome. Okay. So this is a cup holder, a drink holder that's universal, fits in your truck. And this company called Vets Tactical, clearly they're vets. They're based out of Boise, Idaho. They make these holders for pistols. And of course, I can't show real pistols, but this is an actual size Glock 19. So is the orange one. So they have one that's directly up and down, Khalid. So if the cup holder's right beside you, you would use this one. And if the cup holder's way ahead, this one, as you can see, let me get it level, has like a 20-degree cantilever to it. I went out, put it in the truck this afternoon and tried it. And it is freaking awesome. And Keith Graves and Mike Glover are working on this together with Vets Tactical. I'm going to tell you what, this unit right here, Khalid, and I'll put a link down below because we have a code SD10 gets you 10% off. This will accelerate your battlefield executions guaranteed by 3 seconds minimum.
Perfect.
possibly as much as 5 seconds.
The one I've got right now lays over to the seat, and the gun hangs right in between my legs. So that's even better.
Man, that's the old way of doing things. You got to get with the times, man. This is 2025 now, for crying out loud. All right, next one up, and this is for Clede. Then I've got a separate one for Jeff and Randy. So another ceasefire violation, HGBG. I've never heard of them before, but they're, I guess, related to TTP, Khalid.
Yeah.
Let me play this. Let me play the short video, and then we'll have you explain it. It's only 33 seconds. So, Khalid, explain what we're looking at there. It looks like, did they bomb something?
What they did, this is a camp, this is an army camp in Orakzai Agency, which is in the tribal region of Pakistan. What they did is they attacked the camp while the army wasn't there. And they went in and they took all the weapons that were inside the camp. This is typical for these guys. I mean, this is why we were so fed up with them. It's one of their strategies. Back in 2016, 2017, they put out a new manifesto saying that, you know what, we're screwing up. If we kill civilians, they're not going to be on our side. So let's attack law enforcement and military only. So basically guerrilla warfare, terrorism via guerrilla warfare. And that way the people will stay on our side, and we will never have to worry about the people telling the military that we want war. Well, we only tolerate that to a certain point, because those are somebody's brothers. They are somebody's kids that you're killing. You're not going to get away with it for too long. The sweep we did on these guys, the same guys you saw in that video, are all now in hell with the devil. They were all executed. I think it was Sunday morning. A strike team went in, found their camp, and executed them all, and did it in a way that I was very pleased. I saw the video of how they were taken care of, and I was very pleased with how it was done. But yeah, this is the problem. Hafiz Gul Bahadur, TTP, Baloch Liberation Army, all of these paper tigers that are created to carry out attacks. They can say, oh, it wasn't us, it wasn't us, it wasn't us. That's what we're seeing now. And Pakistan needs to take a firm stand and just go back to bombing the Taliban. That's how they learn their lesson.
Fair enough. So, Randy, I've got one pulled up for you with your favorite folks over there at Antifa. So this is from Andy. No, Mr. Bessinger, you are just lying here. Antifa is not a singular organized group, but there are many Antifa groups that are organized, such as Rose City Antifa, Antifa International, and others. How can you claim the movement has no links to the German Communist Party when the original Antifa was a paramilitary for the German Communist Party? Who's your editor? So as you can probably see here, this was published in the New York Times. And Ken Bessinger here says the Epic Times since 2021 also took issue with the decision to call Antifa a terrorist organization, despite there being no legal designation for domestic terrorism. What are your thoughts on that, Randy? I mean, this whole thing that they're saying, oh, Antifa is not a terrorist organization. It's like these droids are not the droids you're looking for.
Well, I mean, again, what is it? Don't believe your lying eyes. I mean, it's ridiculous. We saw literally before, but 2020 in the summer of love, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All that didn't happen without those folks. And they're trying to rear their ugly heads again. But I think, one of the best things that we did was drive some of that money of them NGOs, or we would probably see a whole lot more of these folks out. Although they're still getting paid somehow and they're still coming out. But the fact is, they are a domestic terrorism organization. I don't care what you say, but because what is the definition of terrorism? You're trying to shape policy by threats and violence to enforce whatever you want on the rest of society or whatever you're a part of, and that's exactly what we're seeing now.
Why do you think the media downplays the organizational aspect of Antifa.
Well, because the media is part of the whole thing.
The
Right?
cabal.
If the media, that's right. If the media wasn't complicit and compromised, they would call them out for what they are. Because any red-blooded American that believes in this country and that flag and what it stands for would call them a domestic terrorist organization.
Yep.
We still see them. They're in black. A lot of times they're hooded because they don't want anybody to know who they are.
Yeah.
Why is that? It's because they're doing illegal stuff. And they're, by illegal, I mean, they're basically committing treason is what they're doing, because they're the action arm somewhat to help overthrow this government, or at least this president. And
Agreed.
that's what they are. I think they developed before then, or they came about before that, but it's clear that they've gotten a lot of traction since Obama's 8 years. Since that guy took office, we've seen nothing but Antifa. And, before that, you never even heard of them.
That's right.
Period.
100%. So, Jeff, I got to ask you, it seems to me that there are some parallels or similarities between Antifa and sleeper cells, like jihadi sleeper cells. Maybe just address that, from your perspective.
Yeah, and they're decentralized in a lot of ways. They have a group that can go out and act independently while taking larger general direction from larger groups. Basically, hey, go out and cause mayhem. They don't go into how to do it. And the reason this isn't getting traction in the media is the left is embracing Antifa. If you look at the No Kings protests yesterday, thousands of people, including elected officials, had T-shirts on that say, "I am Antifa." Now, who would have a T-shirt on that says, "I am Al-Qaeda," or "I am Tren de Aragua," or even "I am the Mafia"? But
AOC.
That's the
AOC. AOC would wear that shirt.
Yeah, but a lot of people did. Little old ladies who probably haven't been out since Woodstock were wearing "I am Antifa."
Yeah.
They're trying to mainstream Antifa.
Did you guys see? I just want to add a couple of things. Did you see on the day of the No Kings protest, there was a anti-US protest in Canada where Antifa Canada was out. There was a protest in Australia where Antifa Australia was out. How is this not a foreign terror organization?
Well,
it's not domestic terrorism.
And they were in Britain too. And that's the irony, is Britain had a No Kings rally when they were the only ones that actually have a king.
Right.
And they still do.
So the Australians, they're still part of the colony.
Insanity. So, Jeff, this one's primarily for you, but I'll give everybody a chance to weigh in on it. It's from Ron DeSantis. If you had told people after the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center that within a quarter century, New York City would elect a mayoral candidate who campaigns with an unindicted co-conspirator in the bombing of the World Trade Center, you would have been considered to have a few screws loose. Yet here it is, from fighting jihad to embracing it. What a slap in the face of the memories of those killed in both the 1993 and 2001 jihadist attacks on the World Trade Center. New York Post Mandami appears smiling arm in arm with unindicted 1993 World Trade Center bombing co-conspirator and terrorist apologist. Read today's cover here. I got to quickly say that there is absolutely no way in the world that New Yorkers are voting for this guy. This is another rigged election, another installation, and they're selling it right now with this bullshit. Today they said 93% chance this asshole was going to win mayor of New York City. There's absolutely no way in a legitimate election that could happen. This is purposeful destruction of our country. There's no other way to put this. I mean, we're pardon my French, this early in the broadcast, we're fucked if we let him and that Somali asshole in office in Minneapolis. We will turn into Great Britain and France, where we lose control. This bullshit's got to stop.
Well, do not underestimate the intelligence of the New York voter. I mean, there are some dumbass people in New York who vote. I mean, a lot of them. And what you have, I think, with Mamdani is he appeals to young people. And, 9/11 was 24 years ago. These people did, if they were even born, they have no real memory of it. I mean, but the way they're doing this is like the equivalent of America embracing someone running as a Nazi in 1946.
Yep.
And this is, but New York is there. I'm sorry for all you New Yorkers, but man, there are some stupid freaking people there. They are the ones that they voted in de Blasio, total moron. They voted in Anthony Weiner, complete pervert and a moron. They AOC, Hakeem Jeffries.
Time out. That's assuming that the elections were legit. I don't think we've had legitimate elections since Woodrow Wilson. The only legitimate election outcome since Woodrow Wilson is JFK and Donald Trump twice. This is a rigged show, man. This is political theater.
If this was in Mississippi, absolutely, you'd have a point. But this is New York. This is stupid people doing stupid stuff. I mean, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're morons. And it's disheartening that they're morons, but they are morons. Remember, Hitler came to power as a duly elected politician.
Yeah. Did he?
I mean, he was legitimately elected. Okay, this is no different than that. There are stupid people in New York, and they vote. And the sane people in New York have moved to Florida.
Yeah, but you know what? The counties that they live in Florida are red, red, red. They're deep
because
red.
They're sane. They made them redder.
Khalid, I'm going to give you the first hits, and then Randy can wrap up on this one. But I don't believe it. I literally do not believe it. They're setting up the steal again. They're going to install this piece of shit, and they're trying to convince people he has support that he does not have.
Well, Jeff forgot Hillary Clinton. She was also elected from New York.
Was she?
That was
she?
Yeah.
Was she? We're 100% sure.
No, I mean, in the paper, it was that she was elected from New York as well. But I agree with you. There hasn't been a legitimate election in the U.S. and God knows when. Because look, when you understand how the U.S. election process works, it's all about sloganeering. Whoever's got the best song and dance wins, whether they actually have any meat to their policies or not. It's all song and dance. And my problem with that is whoever spends the most money on advertising, their song and dance gets played the most. So you get that pumping in people's head, and people go, well, I've heard of Mamdani. I haven't heard of the other candidate. Who's the other candidate? Who's the other candidate? And they don't know who to vote for then. That's just a screw up on the Republican side to let this guy have so much coverage. New York is a major voting precinct. If you lose the city of New York, you have lost America. That's the entire East Coast gone. You've already lost Patterson. Patterson, New Jersey is gone, which means Atlantic City is gone as well. Now you're going to lose New York City as well. You might as well take Pennsylvania and all the way to Ohio as well, because those are going to end up being, that leftist Muslim believer who says, well, we should have this and we should have that. And again, as a Muslim, I think these guys are full of shit. I wouldn't vote for them even if you paid me to vote for them.
I'm holding firm. I do not believe that any of those people were legitimately elected. I just don't believe it. I think it's all bullshit. And one of the reasons I think it's bullshit, because when you look at the polls and you click through to the methodology, they will sample 50-60% registered Democrats, 25-30% registered Republicans, 10-15% independents. Yep. But they try to pass it off as a legitimate poll saying, oh, the Democrats are out front. Well, no shit, Sherlock, when you poll a larger number of people. But when Sydney Sweeney did the good genes ad or whatever it was for American Eagle, I saw a poll that said 12% of Americans were offended by that ad. That's the real number of idiots. The real number is 12%. The real number is not 50%. They are not equal to us. And it's political theater. You call it song and dance. I call it political theater. Look at Nancy Pelosi the other day ago, taking a fucking bullshit crown saying, watch me, I'm going to rip up the king's crown. And she goes like this, and she can barely stand up. And she's going, like this. And I'm like, who believes this garbage? You have to be a complete idiot to believe in this stuff.
That 12% lives in New York City, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Chicago. If a city full of communists, they will elect a communist.
Oh my God, Randy, bring some sanity from Texas to this conversation.
Well, I'm with you, Chris. I don't think those were duly elected. If we went back and can go through all those elections legitimately, we would probably find a different story.
Yeah.
You know, there's no way, just like this guy is not going to get elected in a fair and legitimate election. It's not going to happen. But you also have to realize, you know, as we look at this as a whole and the whole big picture and the patterns, apparently the people that are running the show, this is where it was always going to go, regardless of what happened on September 11th.
Correct.
But you know, we also have to realize whether it's that guy, did he really do the bombing in 93? Who had a hand in that? You know, why are they letting him walk around and not arrested? Probably because they know he's not guilty. Somebody else did it. And who that is, I don't know. We have some speculation on September 11th. Maybe it was the same damn people. You know, who really, you know, we can't say at this point, but I think you're right. These people aren't getting duly elected. And I think that the disparity, you know, back in 2016, it was easy for them to say, oh, it's at least half the country. Now it's down to that 12%. But the fact is, they're the loudest 12% also. They're more than willing to go out there and protest, walk around, throw bricks through windows, you know, and vote for whoever. Or when we find out the vaccine, you know, now that we got Kendi, and then they're going to get more boosters just to say, ha, ha, ha. You know, this is no different. That's why you see people wearing those shirts now. I am Antifa, when they don't have a clue what that really is.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we're getting ready to go into the main topic tonight, which is the next episode of our long war series. Want to quickly mention, if y'all could head over to survivaldispatch.news, there it is there. If you can't find our live videos, it's Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's always at the top of survivaldispatch.news when we're broadcasting live. When we're not broadcasting live, the daily sit rep is here. And if you look at today, because of the Amazon issues, the AWS, Amazon Web Services barfing today, it actually published our sit rep twice. And I'm not going to delete one because who knows what will happen to the other one. But if you haven't seen one of our sit reps, this is what it looks like. You sign up for a free account. You get our daily sit reps. You get our weekly watch guides. And you also get early access to our instructional videos. I'll just go back and show you one, for example. So whenever you see JJ Morris, you know 100% for sure it's a learning video, an instructional video. I do some as well on topics that are in my wheelhouse, like communications, anything technology related, that sort of thing. But we'd really, really appreciate if you go and sign up for a free account, because they have this thing called the top 100. And the top 100, there's no fancy algorithm. It's predicated on whoever got the most subscribers over the past 24 hours is ranked at the top, and then down from there to the top 100. Well, it's kind of like a self-licking ice cream cone. If you're at the top, more people see you. The more people that see you, the more people that sign up. So if we're going to, you know, fulfill our mission, which is to dispatch information to our fellow Americans and friends of America so that y'all can survive in these very dangerous times, the way we do that is by growing our audience. So we're not asking you to even spend any money. For those people who do, we appreciate them greatly. And I'll speak a little bit more to the benefits of Guardian memberships later on. But even a free account helps us in our mission tremendously. Share it with your friends. And I can't say thank you enough for that. So let's get into tonight's main topic. And this is an interesting one. We've touched on this a little bit, but tonight is on militias and community defense. Keeping in mind, this is Post-9 2.0, complex coordinated attacks on 10 to 15 tier 2 cities across the country, population 100 to 500,000, one tier 1 trauma center. Mayorkas's DHS put on paper that they let 200,000 SIAs loose in our country, special interest aliens. Y'all have heard it from JJ Carroll firsthand. An SIA is a terrorist or a known terrorist affiliate. So that's 200,000+ minimum. Considering it came from the old Biden admin, it's probably 500,000. 9/11 2.0 is not going to be a one and done. 9/11 2.0 is the kickoff to us turning into the Middle East and having terrorist attacks on a day in, day out type of basis. So after that happens, that's where we are in this long war series. And tonight we'll speak with regards to civilian-led security, communities organizing patrols, mutual defense, mutual assistance groups, whatever you want to call them, some intelligence sharing. So once these complex coordinated attacks happen, then we have the follow-on attacks after that. Really, not only are you your own first responder today, even more so after the shit hits the fan, because if you go back and watch in more detail in our previous episodes, you'll see that the goal of the secondary attacks is to kill first responders in 9/11 2.0. So you have a reduced law enforcement, reduced first responders in general. If you're already in a city that has reduced headcount in law enforcement because of the defund the police crap in 2020, imagine what it looks like post 9/11 2.0. So today you are your own first responder, and even more so as time goes on. And I honestly believe in my heart that the Second Amendment was written specifically to address situations like this. When things get out of control, the most American thing in the world is taking control and putting us back on the right track. So segment 1, I labeled it the new threat picture and why civilian-led security now. I went through all of my points. Khalid, I'm coming to you first and foremost. I want you to do a couple things. Number one, because you can watch any of these 144 episodes in any order. They all stand on their own. We do a little bit of repetitive stuff where we explain what the context is so that you can jump in at any particular point in time. But Khalid, I want you to quickly lead us through what complex coordinated attacks look like based on the blueprints from Mumbai 2008, Paris 2015, and what local indicators should civilians be looking for that indicate, the shit's about to hit the fan, or wait a minute, I'll stop cussing. When the fecal matter is fixing to hit the oscillating device.
There you go. Okay, a complex coordinated terrorist attack. It's a concept you guys have not seen in the U.S. We've seen it on this side of the world. We've seen it in Europe a number of times. There have been different variations where they've tested out different methods and tactics, which play into what we're seeing develop for the U.S. Your first example of this was Mumbai 2008, when you saw I think it was called a Zodiac they used to get onto the land in Mumbai.
Yes.
They had, I think, 7 teams that went location to location, shooting people up, detonating stuff, and just moving through until they got to the Taj Mahal Hotel, and they made that their siege location. 72 hours the siege went on, and they were going room to room, checking passports. Anyone who was a foreigner, they executed. Anyone who was someone that was part of the government of India, they executed. It was horrific watching. And the interesting part was it happened during the Thanksgiving weekend. So it was 3 days that Americans would have been at home. It was timed so that America could watch the entire thing play out on their television sets. Very gruesome. The second attack we saw was in 2015 in Paris, where they attacked a stadium, and then from a stadium moved on and started attacking different targets from there. They did not run a siege situation there. What they did is they hit one target because that's where the prime minister was at, the president of France was, and then they moved on into smaller targets, which was a variation of what was going on. Then you had the Crocus City Hall attack in Russia, which was carried out by ISKP, which is part and parcel of the 9/11 2.0 attack. It's really interesting when you stop and you look at how all these different attacks carried out. You also have to add in these lone wolf attacks, because the lone wolf attack adds another dimension to it. If a part of the team is separated from everyone else, he's already got a suicide vest on, he's already got weapons, he's already been trained, he can wreak havoc if he wants to by himself, and at the end just detonate himself, and that's it, game over. So the model has grown very quickly. The problem that we have in the US is that, one, nobody's taking it seriously. I mean, that's the biggest problem, that no one's taking it seriously. When you have the FBI walking around telling fusion centers and telling local police departments that no, it's a hoax, it's just clickbait, Kash Patel is going to have a lot of questions to answer the day after this attack hits, because the prep time that you should have had was 18 months. It took us up until Joe Kent got into office as National Counterterrorism Director for anyone to even pay attention to what was going on. Once they paid attention, the threat alert came out. That was almost 2 months ago. In 2 months, nothing has moved because the FBI is saying, oh, no, it's not true. It's not true. It's not true. Had this come from the FBI, they would have been the ones beating the drum saying, oh, my God, look, oh, my God, look, oh, my God, look, this is about to happen. Let's get ready. Let's get ready. The entire idea of personal fiefdoms, when you talk about national security of a country, does not work. You want to know why I say that? Look at Pakistan. Here we have governments trying to pretend like they are interested in national security. Then you have the army who is actually interested in the security of the country. And you have everybody drawing you left and right, left and right, left and right. To this day, since 2007, when terrorism started in Pakistan, to this day, there has not been one single expert on terrorism on Pakistani TV at all. All politicians, not one person that can explain it, describe it, help you counter it. That's my problem with what's going on here. That's the problem you have in the US as well, that you do not have terrorism experts talking to you like we talk to you on Survival Dispatch.
Yeah, that's discouraging to say the least. So, Jeff, question for you. In the first 60 minutes of disruption, what would you say the top 3 actions are that save lives and potentially secure neighborhoods?
Well, I think if you're near an attack, the very first thing is get off the X and get home.
Good point.
Bug in, not bug out. I think the most important thing is to be able to convince your neighbors that this is part of a bigger problem. This is not, okay, someone shot up the hospital. This is, guys, this is step 1 of 20, and we need to be prepared for that. And if you can convince people of that, and what you probably need to do is say, okay, maybe I'm wrong. I hope to God I'm wrong. And if I am wrong, I have egg on my face, but no blood, no foul. But if I'm right and we do nothing, we're in deep doo-doo here. And then the other thing, I think the final thing is you need to get with your neighbors and secure your neighborhood. You're not going to be able to secure the city, but secure the neighborhood. Give yourself a perimeter, give yourself some room. Distance equals safety. You need that buffer zone. Any military, they don't just, they set up a base. They don't just patrol the edge of the base. They want to push that perimeter out. So they have a defensible, they have a barrier. They have a buffer zone between them and the enemy. And you're going to need to do that with your neighborhood.
I appreciate that. Actually dovetails perfectly into my question for Randy. So Randy, when we grew up, we all knew our neighbors. It was a very social thing as far as neighborhoods were concerned, and cookouts and all that kind of stuff. Today, that's not so much the case. How do you make contact with your neighbors so that they don't think that you're some tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, and convince them that there's value? And also, some of them, maybe you don't want to be part of it. How do you vet people as well? So how do you vet people that you just don't know, number one? And number two, then how do you convince them that they should participate in something, at least as a neighborhood watch group, if nothing else?
Well, I think vetting people today is a whole lot easier, right? All you have to do is ask them, do you support this president and this flag? Right there is going to separate the men from the boys.
Straight
right
through
there.
the bullshit. Good job.
And you're right about the neighbor thing. I don't know really to say, because first you'd have to vet them. But as they've already eloquently pointed out, no one wants to believe it at this point. So it's not going to be, it won't even be the first day of attack. There'll be some that go, oh, maybe they're right. But by the second day of the attacks, they're going to know that we were right. But at that point, for some people, it's going to be too late. It is going to be far too late. And, so you can only then go around and kind of scoop up at that point, because then there are going to be a whole lot more people on that board, right? They're going to be, oh crap, this was true. And it's a sad day that even as we've talked about many times, none of our federal agencies are on our side. They're just not. And when they go around telling people that isn't true, it's clickbait. What happens when it happens? You know what they're going to say on the news, right? We've already mentioned this many times. They're going to say, oh, it was an intelligence failure. We should have known. We should have known, but we didn't. So now we need to implement, these new laws and new rights that they'll take away. Go ahead, Jeff.
We're on our radar.
That's right.
Yep, on our radar.
They were on our radar. We talked about it many times, but we didn't do one thing. It's no different than the power grid. They've been telling us for 2 years there was going to be a major attack on the power grid. Now we can guesstimate about when that's going to happen. But again, no one's done anything about it, whether to protect, upgrade, or defend that said power grid. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely it is. So I was going to pull up an app to show you here, but it's asking me for my password for Apple iCloud, and I don't remember what it is. So there's apps on the App Store, suffice it to say, that provide you basically a platform to form like a community group. So something maybe a little bit more formal than, say, the Ring app or Nextdoor or something like that. And so the one that I was using, and again, it's asking me for my Apple password, is called Citizen. That's it, just Citizen. Is a pretty good looking app until it asked me for my Apple password, which of course I can't remember. So I won't show it to you because I don't remember the number. But we're going to segue into, how do we take some of this urgency that we're trying to communicate to everybody and organize it into some sort of lawful, neighborhood watch, maybe even neighborhood patrols, depending on how big your neighborhood is, mutual defense, mutual tongue-tied, mutual assistance groups, MAGs. There we go. Golly. Because it's easier said than done. And there's a ton of stuff out there on setting up MAGs, mutual assistance groups. So we're not going to, cover this to the super fine detail. But if you're going to bring people into a group and based on protecting your community, protecting your neighborhood, take the advice that was just given. But you should probably want to speak to somebody, number one, who's a local attorney, because we are not attorneys and we are not giving you legal advice. And they will tell you what the considerations are for your specific geography as far as mutual assistance groups, community watch groups, all of that sort of stuff is. Here in Florida, we've got, pretty good laws. Our stand your ground law is 3 sentences long. If you feel like your life is in danger, you're essentially authorized to use deadly force, even if your life isn't in danger. It's perception, the perceived danger, to your life. That's not the same, obviously, in multiple states across the country. But Khalid has described this where you set an outer perimeter and then another perimeter, then another perimeter as you build your group of people, so that as stuff gets closer to your neighborhood, you have some element of advance notice. And as Khalid's mentioned, Jeff's mentioned, Randy's mentioned, I've mentioned, your job is to protect your little spot of your neighborhood. It's not to protect the whole city sort of thing, right? So there has to be some coordination, which is kind of why I like that Citizen app. And I wish I could show it to you, but God, I can't remember my password. But maybe when the guys are talking, I'll see if I can't look it up. So what I want to reinforce that Khalid mentioned is that when you're setting up those perimeters, it shouldn't be a hard number that says, okay, we're going to cover everything for 2 blocks or for half a mile or whatever it is. Look at where there are natural places that are easy to gather intelligence, easy to perhaps stay unseen, and also easy to defend. In other words, pick the fatal funnels. A fatal funnel is somewhere that you don't want to go through, but you want somebody else to go through, because once they're in the fatal funnel, they have nowhere to go but towards you or away from you. And that's a really shitty place to be. And a simple example of a fatal funnel would be walking through a doorway when you have a home invasion and you can't see what's going on down the hallway that way, and you poke your head out in the hallway. That's a fatal funnel. You walk around a corner into another room. That's a fatal funnel. You can apply the same logic to your neighborhood, to your community, and pick where those smart spots are. And it also pays to put this on a map and distribute it to everybody in your mag and basically say, look, like this is station 1, this is station 2, this is station 3. And the next thing, you have to have good communication, right? So that's another limitation, because if you go out and you buy FRS radios, they have a low low power on them. They're from, any retail place, Walmart, you name it. They do not have the range that they advertise on the packages, number one. So let's say you spend the $35, you get a GMRS license from the FCC. If you are heavily treed, a lot of elevation changes, you'll be lucky to get a mile and a half in dense urban centers out of them. That has to play a role in where you set these fatal funnels as well, because it doesn't do any good if somebody's out of comms range. So we've done all this testing ourselves, by the way. We know exactly how far we can get in any direction in our subdivision based on what type of radios and communication tools we have at our disposal. The next part is coordinating something amongst yourself and your neighbors where somebody is assigned a period in time to kind of be the main person to keep an eye out what's going on. For example, 3 times now in the past month, we've had somebody who didn't belong in our neighborhood at our front door. First guy showed up at 8:30 on a Sunday morning, stood there, looked at our cameras, looked at the front door, looked at our Ring doorbell, pounded on our decorative steel storm door, said, "Is there anybody in there? My truck's in the shop." Couldn't tell if anybody was home. The guy didn't belong in our neighborhood, period. I was in the shower. Cindy was in bed watching on the thing, thinking, she wasn't going to go to the front door. Shortly after that, we have another guy comes into the neighborhood. He walks up to the door. He just stands at my front door. Didn't do anything. Walks away. 2 days later, he shows up again, stands at my front door. There's one way in and out of this neighborhood. There was no reason for him to be here, which is kind of the third one. I look out the front window, and there's a guy sitting at the end of our driveway taking a video of our property. So I go out to make contact with him. He peels off, 1/8 of a mile, does a U-turn, comes back, rolls his window down, cusses at me, asks me why I'm videoing him with my phone. And I said, "You're taking a video of my property. You don't belong in this neighborhood." So he says a bunch of cuss words. He goes 1/8 of a mile the other direction, does a U-turn, comes back, rolls the passenger window down, cusses at me some more, goes another 1/8 of a mile, does a U-turn, takes off, and he's gone. That's it. You have to pay attention to what's happening in your neighborhood, who belongs in your neighborhood, who doesn't belong in your neighborhood. So apologies for long-windedness, but I wanted to cover all those key points. Jeff, I'm going to come right back to you. And because you've done a good job, you're like the sentinel for your neighborhood. What differentiates like a lawful neighborhood watch group from ad hoc armed groups, and even armed individuals like George Zimmerman?
Well, the thing about a neighborhood watch is they're organized, first of all, and there's a record of them, and they should be in contact with local law enforcement. I'm not, just because we don't really have any cops that come through here. I mean, we got the sheriff, and I'm in contact with I have the phone number of the county sheriff, but he's up in the Phoenix area because the counties out here are freaking huge. They're the size of states. But if we had a regular patrol, I would go out of my way to make contact with them. But we'll get cops back here, Jesus, unless you call them, we'll get them twice a year. There's really no crime here. But you need to have that. If you're in a city, you need to have that relationship with your local law enforcement, just so that if they see you, if something happens and they see you walking around and maybe you have a sidearm or you have a rifle slung, they know you and they say, okay, that's Randy. Yeah, he's with the local neighborhood watch here. Because if you don't do that, you're indistinguishable from the looters, essentially. If they can't tell the difference between you and the guy trying to break into your house, it's a 50-50 chance that you're going to be the one getting shot.
Yeah, that's a problem, isn't it? So, Clete, I'm going to come to you next on this because you always get good advice on this. How should community watch groups, I'm not going to call them militias because we'll probably get flagged by CommieTube or something like that, but how should they document their activities to make sure that if necessary, there's some paper trail that they can say, look, this is what we did. This is when we did it. We were just watching our neighborhood. We weren't trying to provoke anybody, because that's the way it'll go down, right?
Yep. Well, we actually did this in 2007. When the Taliban took over our district in Swat, we put together our own M word. I won't use the full word so we don't get tagged. We had our own intelligence. We had our own surveillance. The idea of perimeter circles, that's what we developed then, because we were covering something in a neighborhood of about 15, 20 kilometers of space when you went out to all directions. And there was maybe a home every half kilometer, 1 kilometer. So we had to develop a proper surveillance system where we could watch what was going on, where it was happening at. What the thing you need to make to be really clear about is when you start talking to people in your neighborhood, start figuring out their skill sets. When they sit down and start talking to you, listen to what they're saying. People that have all the gossip in their neighborhood, they're great for surveillance. They're great for intelligence gathering because they are listening, they're watching, they're already doing it. So use them for what they're doing. The key here is you need to make sure that the people you select are people that you can count on, number one. Number two, when it comes to documenting, you've got to document what time your shift starts, what you see during that shift. Even if it's someone in the neighborhood that drives through, write it down. At this time, Chris's car went through the neighborhood. At this time, Randy's car went through the neighborhood. At this time, Jeff's car went through the neighborhood. At this time, an unknown vehicle went through, license plate number this. So it doesn't look like you're only sitting and looking for the troublemakers. You're documenting everything. So you then have a pattern of movement as well. So when the fecal matter hits, you actually have a pattern of movement of who moves through that neighborhood at what time. So nothing catches you off guard. It is a lot of work to do, but once you do that, you start to understand a lot of things. I don't put a lot of weight on cameras, and there's a reason I don't put weight on cameras. A lot of people do not have cameras that have night vision in them. A lot of people don't have cameras that record. A lot of people don't have cameras that they're always watching. When you're eyeball to ground, your understanding is much clearer than someone who's watching a camera. Cameras work great in shopping malls and office complexes because everyone coming in, everyone going out, you're looking at one entry point, one exit point. You're looking at a neighborhood now for anything that looks fishy. Someone there that should not be there, someone moving at a time they shouldn't be moving. The big thing I always look at, people moving at night. When it goes dark, who's moving? Yeah. Because that's when a lot of people will come and they'll scope a neighborhood because they have the cover of darkness to work with. They can move. No one can see them. No one can get a description on them. No one understands who went through. So those are some tips I give you. But when you document even your neighbors moving through the neighborhood. That way you have a pattern of behavior as well.
I appreciate that, Khalid. So Randy, at one point in time, you were an echo, a comms guy in the Green Berets. What would you recommend for a starting point for communications if you manage to, succeed in forming your neighborhood group?
Well, I'm going to go whatever doesn't really need to be charged, because one of the things, just like Khalid said, and I saw the same question, well, don't cameras document all that? Well, if there's no power, the cameras don't work. And then we go through the whole list he just listed out of why that's probably not a good idea. And so the same thing with communications. You're going to need to use radios that don't need to be charged, because when the power goes out, you're not going to be able to charge them. And, the only thing I've ever seen that does is in the Q course. And it was this thing we called was, not just archaic, but it was more like torture. It was this little device that was like you spun with the wheels, you know what I mean? And it takes forever to charge one battery. Literally, you would wake up in the middle of the night and that's all you heard, the little camps around you. Somebody, like in the military, you have a fire guard, right? So when people go to sleep, when you're in the field, the least you go down to is a third, right? It's still up. Okay. 2/3 maybe sleeping. You're in combat, that's 50 to 75%. Generally at 75% is going to be up, and maybe 25%. So you have a rotation there, but you're going to have to be able to I don't know, maybe learn smoke signals, learn to use mirrors like the Indians did. You know what I mean? There's all kinds of ways that you can communicate
Flashlights
that may not take power, because when the power goes down, you've only got probably 2 days left worth of battery. And I guarantee you, no one has this little device that you sit there and all night long just to charge one battery. So my point was, we only had a fire guard for people to be up. We also had them working on charging the battery. So when you were up, you had to be on this little thing, just wheeling it for an hour or two, trying to build the power up. And that's not going to work. I know there's some stuff solar out there, but I'm not sure how well they actually charge batteries when your life depends on it. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I can
not great advice, but that's what I got.
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, it really depends on budget, right? So
That too.
if you can afford a power station, that let's say is in the $600 to $1,000 range, that will recharge a GMRS or ham radio, whatever, basically shortwave included radio multiple times, and your phone multiple times. You don't need to spend many thousands of dollars, but I would budget $600 to $1,000. Now, the thing with solar is you would think here in the Sunshine State, that things would charge fast, but believe it or not, the vast majority of panels that we've been sent, PV panels, photovoltaic panels for testing, if you're off ever so slightly in your declination to the sun, it's a 200, watt panel and is generating 60, 70, 80 watts. Then you go and adjust it like 1 inch and get it more in line with the sun. And, it's 140 watts. But half an hour later, it's back down again. So,
well, you do have to watch it, because I will say we had panels, but now this was 2004 and 5, and they didn't work. So we all opted for the.
It's a deal for sure. Like valid observation on your point. So, moving into segment number 3, so intelligence sharing. Collecting it, vetting it, reporting it. So again, keep in mind the context of this. We've had 9/11 2.0 has happened, multiple complex coordinated terrorist attacks across the country. We now have the follow-on attacks, which will go on for our lifetime and probably our grandchildren's lifetime as well. You can't bring hundreds of thousands of terrorists into your country and expect nothing's going to happen. By the way, that's my response when somebody thinks that this is all bullshit. Really? So you let 200,000 at a bare minimum people who are known terrorists who hate our guts into the country, and you don't think that they're going to seek retribution when they have said they want retribution? I mean, that to me, it's not hard to connect those dots. But regardless, moving into the intelligence sharing piece here. So my recommendation is that you find somebody in your neighborhood. There's likely somebody in your neighborhood who's been in the military, been in law enforcement, and understands how to gather intelligence and how to document intelligence. And if they haven't, then you have to seek out online resources. There are lots of resources online that teach you how to do what's called a local area study. Just do a search on that and you'll find lots of advice. I think it's better if you can connect with somebody who can be, a teacher of sorts, as opposed to just reading reams of documentation online. But that's just my own personal opinion. So you find somebody who has this in their wheelhouse. The next thing you have to do, and if you do find somebody who has it in their wheelhouse, they're going to do this automatically. There needs to be some uniformity of reports, so that regardless of who is gathering the intel, who is putting the information in the reports, it's in a common format that everybody expects and is easy to understand. And I'm going to circle back here. You really need to find the fatal funnels in your neighborhood. And that's where you should be watching the closest, because if and when the bad guys come into your neighborhood, that's your best chance to nip it in the bud before it gets out of control and, people's homes are burned down. Khalid will tell you, if they want into your home, they will smash the windows and throw burning tires in the house. And guess what? You're coming out one way or another. So there's just no way to avoid that. I do know somebody, though, who shall remain unnamed, who inside of about 30 minutes can make their home look like it's been abandoned and basically burned out. And people look at it and go, oh, there ain't nothing there. There's nobody there. There's nothing there worth looking at, which is a pretty devious, thing. The next part I would say is that you probably want to have some documentation for your MAG, your mutual assistance group, as far as the legalities of, let's say, bias awareness is concerned. I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, but at the end of the day, you have to balance profiling, which works. If it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck. But if you don't have clearly documented stuff for your mutual assistance group and somebody gets shot, somebody gets hurt, even though we've been invaded by terrorists, there is always a reckoning. At some point in time, there is a reckoning. Anybody who thinks that the shit hits the fan and that gives them carte blanche approval to go out and shoot whoever they want, it ain't going to work that way. And there will be a reckoning at some point in time. So the more that you have documented, the better off everybody is. And then the next part is that, say, for example, the stuff that's happened in our neighborhood over the past few weeks with these people clearly casing our property is having an AAR, an after action report, where everybody gets it. And you can say, look, at this time of day, here's the guy's picture, came to my door, did these things. And that way everybody is reading off the same music sheet, for lack of a better term. So, Jeff, I'm going to go to you just because you're really pragmatic when it comes to these things. There's no gunfire going off, but what is I'm trying to think of the right word. What constitutes suspicious versus unusual but benign? And how do you teach people to identify the two? I mean, you this is in your wheelhouse. You're used to watching people.
Yeah.
How do you teach other people that?
Well, profiling works, but it isn't the be all end all. If you're only looking for, military age Middle Eastern men, you can miss somebody else. Yep. So the profiling should most it should do is draw your eye. What you should be looking at is actions. What activities are they doing? Does it make sense? Is it out of the ordinary? Is it unusual? Is it, and then you look at the person as a whole. Okay, what kind of clothes are they wearing? And then what's their activity? Does the activity match the clothing? Does the clothing match the activity? So more than and that will protect you when it comes to the police too. If there's an incident, and you can, what drew you to this guy? Well, he was walking up and down the street looking at all the houses, but not going to any of them, not knocking on a door. And I said, you don't say, yeah, he was a young black guy. He was a young Arab looking dude. No, because that just basically says, okay, you're biased, and that's what they're going to say. So you got to pin it on their activity, not just their look. And you can look and say, okay, the guy was 25. The average age of this neighborhood is 75. Okay, he didn't fit in, and he wasn't going to somebody's house like it was grandma's house or something like that. He was just roaming around the neighborhood. Now, if he's roaming around the neighborhood smoking a cigar, maybe he's not allowed to smoke in the house. Okay, that makes sense. But if he's just roaming around the neighborhood, that's awkward. You can just say, look like he was casing.
Yeah, well said. So, Randy, coming to you next on this, I'm curious, what are your recommendations on how neighborhood watch groups, mags, whatever you want to call them, can plug into official reports of suspicious activity, let's say? Because a lot of law enforcement agencies these days, their communications are encrypted, and it's not like you can just go buy a police scanner and you can listen in on everything that you could before. But a lot of law enforcement agencies are really active on their X accounts, especially like the sheriff's offices here in Florida are all over that stuff like a fat kid on a Sonic milkshake. But I'm wondering if you have any other thoughts on how people can kind of plug into what's going on in the broader sense that's official notifications from the authorities.
Yeah, because, again, when the power goes out, you're not going to be listening to that stuff anyway. But I think, most places I've lived, there's been at least one newspaper, right, they'll list out all the arrests. I've seen some that also list out all the crimes. This is how many thefts, this is how many break-ins, so many assaults. You need to tap into those networks so you can see what's going on right now. You know what I mean? And what is the normal pattern. But I think when the feces hits the oscillating fan, I think all that'll be out the window. But yes, you're going to have to be very careful, because you said there's going to be a reckoning. You can't just go out and shoot your neighbor because he's been a douchebag all these years and then try to blame it on something else. You know what I mean? It's going to have, something substantive of this is what they were doing. Just like your guy, he's out there filming and taking pictures of houses when he shouldn't even be there. That is not for a good reason.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not there. He's not a realtor. Because none of those places are for sale.
But I just want to clarify, Randy. So, I mean, for the past 3 election cycles in our neighborhood, it's 99% Trump signs. But there's 2 assholes over here that had Hillary and had Biden signs and Kamala signs. Are you saying that when the shit hits the fan, we can't just take them out?
Well, I will say, use this metrics. Do they then burn their Hillary and Kamala signs right afterwards? Then you'll know that they've woken up.
Touche.
But here's what I will say for the neighborhoods, right? Once this thing develops, if you're smart and I don't know, I'm thinking about my neighborhood, which is fairly large. It would be kind of hard to do, but you need to close off all those entrances, right? And what you need to really do is have switchbacks into the ones that you're going to allow in. And I would then put them where the only way they're going to be able to access your entire neighborhood is that choke point.
Which we have. We have one way in, one way out.
That's right. And that makes perfect sense, because there's only one way in or out. And when you make that a little bit harder, they may just move on. But if nothing else, if they don't move on, it's give you plenty of time to take action.
Yeah, appreciate that, Randy. So, Khalid, I want to go back to AARs. How do you take the after action reports and close the loop on that so that lessons get fed back into the neighborhood watch /mag?
Well, what we did, Chris, I'm going to, again, give you practical experience. At the end of a shift, we'd have everybody come to one place and meet, bring their reports with them. We'd compile the reports. We'd look through them. We'd figure out what trends we're seeing. And then we'd tell that guy who was from that area, go tell the station that these things are the trends we're seeing throughout the entire neighborhood or throughout certain areas. Keep an eye out for these things. We would never, our surveillance teams were never allowed to take action themselves. They would actually have to call an action team that was trained to assess and decide whether it required lethal force or whether you could just hold him and call for law enforcement. Those decisions you cannot put in a surveillance person's hand. That's someone who understands how to put a report together, how to watch stuff. He may not know how to handle a weapon, nor will he know how to figure out who I can take action on, who I can't take action on. Those people then become your go-between with law enforcement, because they've got a proper report that has been generated throughout the entire neighborhood. They've taken a list of things to the sheriff's office. Say, look, in our neighborhood, these are the things we're seeing. We see this many vehicles are coming in at this time that are not from our neighborhood. This many odd number of people are walking through the neighborhood that are not from our place, nor are they going to houses at all. When you start having it's like a fusion center. Everything comes together. People sort it out, because I can't trust you to figure out what's important, what's not important. So you bring it to us. We put the whole thing together. We collate it. We spend an hour talking to them. Okay, you wrote this down. What does that mean? What did you see? And you get firsthand understanding from it. That then goes into an after-action report. That gets distributed to all of the intelligence, all of your surveillance centers. So everyone knows what trends are happening, what aren't happening. But to do that correctly, you have to develop a reporting system beforehand that everyone follows the same thing. Like I said before, you're listing out at every time when anybody's car go by, even if it's someone from the neighborhood, you write it down so that you can see what's going on and you have a proper list of things. If tomorrow law enforcement comes and asks you, well, here's everything that happened that day.
I like it. That's fantastic. I want to pull something up, just a resource here that's pretty cool. So this is National Neighborhood Watch, so nnw.org. And you can go here and start a neighborhood watch program. They've got all kinds of online resources to help you with it. So you click on this area here and they'll step you through everything that you need to do to start a neighborhood watch. And I'm using the term neighborhood watch because it's not going to trip anything on CommiTube. Whereas if I call it, that thing that's mentioned in the Second Amendment that starts with an M, for sure they'll trash our video. But this is a really interesting resource. I've read most of this website and I endorse the content on here with the exception of one thing. And where is it here? There's something in here with relations to right there, this Pandemic Resources Center. And I'm not going to say why I disagree with it. Connect the dots. It's not that hard. So also another quick reminder, please head over to survivaldispatch.news, sign up for a free account. Again, you'll get early access to our instructional videos. You'll get our weekly watch guides and you'll get our daily sit reps completely for free. And again, if we don't have a video playing, the sit rep looks like that. It sits right at the top of the page. And we do have quite a few people who are paying members, $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year, which gets you 2.5 months for free. You get quite a bit of stuff with that. You get 37 of our SDI e-magazines. We sell them for $10 a piece. You get $370 in free e-mags, based on paying for your membership, of course. But you get enrolled in the Survival Dispatch emergency notification system. What does that mean? When the shit hits the fan, you get an email notification. You get a notification on our Substack, survivaldispatch.news, that only Guardians can access. You get a notification in our Signal group, the SDENS Signal group. And if you have the POC-Link radios, I think I've got one here, you also get notifications on your POC-Link radios as well. We did a test this afternoon, which was interesting. And it's meaning that I sent a blast out to everybody to make sure that they got it. Beyond that, though, you also get access to our Signal chat, which is the Guardians channel. You get access to our Crusaders channel on Signal, which is all news and intel. So there's no back and forth BSing. It's a quick and easy way to find the intelligence information you're looking for. You get early access to our ThreatWire bulletins, which John Wheaton is doing a kick-ass job on. You get sources for all of our sit reps. You get direct access to all of us on Survival Dispatch News, especially Khalid and I, because we don't believe in sleeping. And you get behind the scenes content in addition to that as well. So with that out of the way, let's get back on track here with the next segment. There's only 2 segments left. This is segment number 4. So the next layer is protecting things that matter the most. So that's people, obviously, but it's also critical sites that are in your neighborhood. So let's just set the stage quickly. Again, we've had complex coordinated terrorist attacks across the country. We've got terrorists committing terrorist acts on a day in, day out basis. What are the critical things in your neighborhood? Well, first and foremost, do you have an electrical substation in your neighborhood? Because if you do, you should likely protect that, because it takes next to nothing to put just regular rounds from a 223, 5.56, even a 9mm, an 1/8 of an inch mild steel through a transformer, mineral oil, drains out, overheats, poof, there goes the substation for your neighborhood. If you have LPTs, large power transformers, you're looking at somewhere between 48 and 60 months to get those replaced. If you have smaller transformers, you're looking typically at 12 to 18 months to get them replaced. So your neighborhood will go down for quite a period of time. So when you're assigning lookouts for the people in your group, power substations is big, pump stations is big. Do you have clinics? Do you have urgent care clinics, stuff like that? Because they now become even more important than ever before. Churches, schools. Do you have communication hubs of any type? Do you have cell phone towers that are shared infrastructure that all of the carriers are hanging off of that one tower? If you have any of those things, they need to be identified, and somebody has to be watching them in your neighborhood watch group or your MAG, whatever you want to call it, Post-9 2.0, because those are simple things that can be taken down the blink of an eye and inflict a tremendous amount of pain on your neighborhood. You should have them all marked out on a map, basically, right? You should have routes for your teams. Whoever's out there keeping an eye on stuff, they should be on a known route. They're not just ad hoc deciding, I think I'll go over there. I think I'll go over there. Because if you lose comms, how are you going to find them? Well, if you know that this team is patrolling this area on this path, It's at least you have a sense of direction to go towards, right? And you also have to be able to share all of this information. And that's why I wanted to show you that Citizen app. And it actually came up for me. And this is crazy. And I didn't even remember my password. It just started working, which is cool. While we're on air here, I just got a warning that 0.4 miles away from me, there's a new sexual offender who's just moved into our neighborhood. And when I checked this earlier today, there was none within a 5-mile radius, but all of a sudden we have one 0.4 of a mile away. That app, you can put together your group inside of it and share information inside that platform. I think it was like $39 a year, $3 a month, like $3.33 a month or something like that. There's other ones out there. That's the one that I kind of like. Take a look at it. But sharing information on that, you can use the Ring doorbell group. You can use the next door groups, whatever you want to use, but find a way to share information, but also find a way to share information in dead tree format, because if all the digital stuff takes a shit, you better have something in dead tree format, in paper, so that can be distributed easily, if not to everybody in your neighborhood, at least the people who are participating in the neighborhood watch / mutual assistance group. So with all of that being said, I think the next part to it is, if you have all of that in place, one of the things that you really have to get in place, and I'm coming to you, Jeff, just because you're like the grand poobah of your neighborhood there. What happens if you have to evac your neighborhood? Like, how do you put together an evacuation plan for something like, chemical, biological shit hitting your neighborhood, or God forbid, something even bigger and worse?
Yeah. You got to figure out where you're going to go. And there might be multiple places. You got to be prepared for multiple routes and multiple locations. If it's something, you may want to evac into a city if there's an issue of, wildfire or something like that. Or if there's criminal activity, terrorist activity, you may want to evac away from there. And if there's, heaven forbid, a chemical weapons, attack, something like that, you've got to figure, okay, which way is the wind blowing? And I'm going to go the opposite freaking direction.
Good point.
But one of the things you also have to consider is, are your neighbors ambulatory? Are they young enough? Do they have vehicles? Can one house take people from 2 or 3 houses? Are you going, do they need oxygen? Are they in a wheelchair? All these things are going to impact your evacuation plan. And so it almost needs to be an evacuation grid. Okay, here's the threat. Okay, here's the direction. Okay, here are the people I need to take care of.
Yeah, that's great advice. Randy, just this question has your name written all over it. How do you balance visibility from a deterrent standpoint with discretion, like avoiding giving away that you're, gathering intelligence, or that you're part of the neighborhood watch, like not drawing that undue detention? The easiest example I can give you is there's been this age-old debate over open carry versus concealed carry. Some people are in one camp, some people are in the other camp, and some of us, like myself, believe there's a time and a place for everything. So if we're interstating and we're stopping at rest areas and, gas stations that we're not familiar with, I open carry all the time, and it's worked really well as a deterrent. But if I'm going, through the local shopping mall, I'm not open carrying. I don't want people to know that I've got the gun because now I'm the target. How do you apply that in a larger sense, Randy, as far as a community is concerned? And you're on mute.
Well, when it comes to this, trying to protect your neighborhood, that may be a little more difficult, right? But, if you certainly have, just like we said, already put up some barriers, because when this goes down, people are going to do that. I saw it in Iraq, just like I talked about the night I got hit. What I was doing was looking at a roadblock that they had built. And there was no doubt that this was not built by the United States Army or the military. In fact, this was rubble or old car. It was all kinds of stuff. But, they had done that out of self-preservation. And we're going to see the same thing here, to put up some sort of roadblocks, cut off your neighborhood, build a wall. You know what I mean? And I don't know, even if it's bad enough, you might have some armed guards out there, because at some point, you're going to want to deter any traffic from coming in. You know, I mean, that's a fact, unless they're from your neighborhood. But at this point, where I'm talking about, everybody already came home or they just left altogether. This is not now where normal traffic, people are going to school and work. This will all be shut down. So if you have where you've built up obvious walls, you have that switchback where the only way you can get in the neighborhood, you're not going to be able to just drive 100 miles an hour and come plowing into the gate. You've got to have something, barriers to where they have to drive through. That is exactly why we do that in theater, for the same exact reasons. It looks like, well, one, it tells you probably don't want to mess around with this neighborhood until you're done with all the easy ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's well said. And I figured that you would have some practical examples of that, Randy. So Khalid, what are the top things, like not the heavy lifts, but the light lifts that communities could do, let's say over the course of the next month with minimal cost to improve their resilience of their neighborhood, to improve their security and resilience? What's the low-hanging fruit, in other words?
Start with the simple thing. Get to know your neighbors. Get to know their kids. Because when you know who your neighbors are, you can feel a little bit more secure. When you don't know who your neighbors are, you're screwed straight away. I mean, that's just an obvious thing. There's a question in the chat that relates to what we're talking about. How do Pakistanis in Peshawar and Khyber Agency protect themselves when we're already living in chaos? We all know each other. There's not a house next to us that we don't know who lives there and whose kids are there, because we all come outside. We all talk to each other. We all know each other. On top of that, we all have drivers. We all have armed guards at the gate, so that at no point do we not know who's where. Like, our guards talk to each other. Our drivers talk to each other. We talk to each other. Our kids talk to each other. So there's a constant information flow between all of us that, hey, did you hear the gunshots last night and that came from such and such area? Hey, did you see that car that came blasting through here the other night? We all talk to each other, which is why I'm a firm believer in start talking. When I was growing up in the US, we had block parties. We had barbecues where everybody got together. Who didn't come and meet you was someone everyone had their eyes on, because it's a meal. It's not like we're all getting together for drinks. It's not like we're all getting together to gamble. It's a barbecue. We're cooking chicken. We're cooking steaks. We're cooking burgers. There's nothing offensive about it. Everyone should come out. When you don't have that familiarity with people around you, you're already at a negative point. You've got to climb out of the negative. Number two, once you do that, start figuring out when the fecal matter hits, what routes do you need to close off, and how are you going to close them off? Are you just going to roll cars into the road and create a zigzag pattern so people have to drive through cars? Are you going to have sandbags you put onto the road? Who's going to put them on the road? Start thinking about it. Even, general discussions. If God forbid something happened in the city, there's been all these riots, No Kings, and just use No Kings as the example. All these No Kings riots have been going on. How do we protect our neighborhood from people like that? What do we do? Use stuff that's already happened to justify the conversation you need to have. Because if you start saying, what if there was a terrorist attack? You can go, dude, what? Terrorist attack? Are you crazy? That won't resonate with people. You start talking about No Kings, Antifa, violence in the cities, that resonates because they've seen it. How do you keep those people out of our neighborhood? Well, I think we could just roll cars into the road. I mean, I'll back my car up, you back your car up, and we'll set up a block. And the cars, once they move, then someone can drive through. But the cars will stay set like this. That's great. But a car can be set on fire.
Well, I can give you a great example. So we've done some work with Andrew Bailey, who was the Attorney General in Missouri, and he just stepped down to take a position in DC. And I would bet a dime to a dollar that he will be Pam Bondi's replacement sooner rather than later. The guy is incredible. He sued the CCP over the Charlie 19 stuff, won $25 billion in court, went all the way to Supreme Court of Missouri. The CCP said, yeah, we're not even going to honor this by appearing. And now he started the process before he went to DC of seizing Chinese assets in San Francisco, all over the country, not just limited to Missouri, for $25 billion in damage that they inflicted on the state of Missouri because of Charlie 19. So he was the guy who got rid of the district attorney that Soros had put in place, who charged the McCloskeys. And if you think this can't happen, look at when BLM marched into their neighborhood, and you've got two attorneys, one with a pistol who she didn't know how to use, and it didn't work anyway. It was a broken pistol, and the husband with an AR-15. Nobody was hurt, but it could have gone the other way, but they did get charged. And if Andrew Bailey was not elected the attorney general of Missouri, they probably would have been in jail right now because they were criminally charged by a Soros-backed DA. So,
and they were liberals.
Yeah.
They
were
probably aren't
Democrats
now, but they
No,
were
they aren't
before
now.
that happened.
It's funny because I talked to Andrew about that just before he went to DC. I brought that up, and he said the exact same thing. He said, no, they're not Democrats anymore. So for good reason. So we're moving into the final segment tonight. So let's just do a quick level set here. So you've organized your group. You've got means of communication with your local first responders. You've hardened up some of the key sites, like you have power stations. So maybe you've done something, to put some element of, call it supervision, I guess, intelligence, spying, whatever you want to call it, intelligence gathering around them. And now you've got to, on a regular basis, you have to train, you have to practice your communications. You have to make sure that there's sustainment in place. Like, Khalid, what happens when a neighborhood gets set up like this and they don't have food stacked up?
Oh my God, game over.
The wheels come
It's
off,
game over,
right?
It's game over. I mean, no matter what prep you've done, if you don't have the basics in place, it's game over.
So here's my recommendation. Then I want to hear from each of you on this. So I think that there should be some type of calendar that speaks to training. You're not going to get everybody to come out for it, period. But if you can get some people, that's better than no people. And when I say training, I mean things like a Stop the Bleed course. Radios. How many people buy radios? They look at the label, it says 25 miles, 35 miles circumference. They turn it on, they turn it off, they put it away, and they think, okay, I'm good when the shit hits the fan, not knowing that radio is good for about a mile and a half in reality. And they should have taken the time to familiarize themselves with the radio, how to operate, how to change channels, how to scan, and what a realistic range is based on where they live. If you live in the salt flats, yeah, you're going to get a lot further. If you live in an urban environment, you're not going to get a fraction of what the radios are advertised for. But moving on from there, I'm a big fan of one pagers. So my feeling is that a lot of people have a very hectic life. They've got kids, they've got work. They want to learn, but they don't have the time for the heavy lifts. So you got to make it light lifts. And a way to make something a light lift is one page. Here's a one pager on things that you should start stacking up in your pantry. Here's a one pager on what our communications SOP is, standard operating procedure. Here's a one pager that's a map of our neighborhood that marks all the key stuff, where the church is, where the substations are, all of those things, the cell phone tower, et cetera, et cetera. If you break it down to bite-sized chunks, it's how you eat an elephant, right? And there's a lot of stuff that's not a really high cost for people to get into. You go to the grocery store, buy an extra case of water every time that you go and stack it up. Well, you're going to spend an extra few bucks each time you go. It's not that big a deal, right? In addition to that, things like backup power is huge, right? Like if you have to take insulin or anything like that, you better have a way to keep the power going. So now you're not going to get away with a $500 budget. You have to start looking at things like generators. And my recommendation is, because we go through this every year in hurricane season, get a dual power generator or dual fuel, so it runs off of gas and propane, because you can stack up propane tanks. They will last forever. If you have jerry cans full of fuel, you basically have to rotate it every 90 days because it loses its octane. It just starts to degrade. Okay. And you can put octane booster in it, and you can put, preservatives in it, et cetera, but you're better off if you've got a propane powered one and just stack up those propane tanks so that you have power for the longest period of time possible. Going beyond that, I actually, you know what? I'm going to save the rest for you guys. And I'm going to come to you, Jeff, just because, again, you're the grand poobah of your neighborhood. How do you find the balance of getting people engaged, like getting them to participate in this stuff without scaring them away or burning them out?
Yeah, I mean, you got to do an assessment of who your neighbors are, and some are going to be more receptive to it than others. There are those that, yep, they're prepared already. We've got, Mormons that live here, man, they got food. You don't have to tell a Mormon to get food.
Boy,
we've got a lot of guys that are either hunters or gun enthusiasts. Don't have to explain to them that they need to stack up extra ammo, and have, maybe multiple guns that fire the same caliber, because the last thing you want is 5,000 rounds. And then the one gun you have to shoot it breaks. So for every major round, I have one pistol round, 9mm, and one, rifle round that I consider the home defense is the 5.56. I have multiple platforms for each. So those people you don't have to tell either, but it's the ones that it's all new to them. You got to do it in baby steps. Like you said, stack up a little extra food. You don't have to buy a year's worth of food next time you go to the grocery store, but buy a 30-pound bag or a 40-pound bag of rice. It's relatively cheap. Beans, lentils, things like that, which can be stacked up and last a long time. It's not or a carnival, yeah. But I'm talking about for people who don't want to, carnival can be pricey if you look at it per ounce. But rice and beans will keep you alive. And then you do it slowly, one step at a time. For comms, hey, get a radio. Don't have to get, you don't have to get a top of the line. You don't have to get the best radio in the world. Just get one that you can talk to your neighbors, and then make sure everybody's on the same channel. So if it hits the fan, everybody's on the same channel. But you almost got to do it in stages.
Yeah, it's
and some people will never be able to do it all. You get some little old lady, she's 75, and she can barely hold knitting needles. I don't think you're going to get her out to the range doing action shooting.
Unless you're Keith Graves and have a 74, 75-year-old lady who outshoots most of the men in the church.
There are those people, but I've seen, and I've also seen big strapping guys who were young could hit the broadside of a frickin' barn.
Yep. I can't remember who I was just talking to. It might have been Khalid, actually, where there was a video in Minneapolis. I think it was Khalid and I, and there was a shooting, right? And the first cop shows up, and there's a guy lying in the road, leaning up against the front of a car, bleeding out. And the cop thinks that he's one of the victims. So he's putting on his nitrile gloves, walking up to this guy saying, "Hey man, where are you hurt?" And that guy was the attacker. He turns around and shoots the cop at point blank range. The cop ended up dying. When the rest of the cops show up, though, they're zigzagging down the street trying to, get to this guy because they came in the opposite end of the neighborhood. And there's a guy running with a pistol. He's running into the face of danger, and he's yelling at the other guys, "Come with me. Let's go. We have to get closer," sort of thing. And there's a guy behind a half wall in front of a church with an AR. He was at point blank range, and he just couldn't hit this guy. Runs out of ammo, drops the mag, takes the next mag, and you can see it from the body cam, and he's doing this. And after a few seconds, they changed the video to something else. He couldn't get the mag inserted because he lost all of his fine motor abilities. There you go. That's stress inoculation, right, Randy? If you've never been in that situation,
that's exactly what happens.
Human beings don't rise to the occasion. They follow their level of training. So, Randy, what, in your opinion, what's the best way to bring new households on board relatively quickly and safely? How do you convince those people to come into the fold that it's worth their time and effort?
Well, I think, as we've touched on here, it's not very easy today because most people don't think this is going to happen and then things are going to be fine. And then we go to the fact that in our neighborhood, we're not in Pakistan. People don't realize that this is a very serious matter and that it's necessary. They do in Pakistan because they've been dealing with it for decades. So you don't have to tell them anything. They already know. We don't have that here. You know, I think Stuart Astbury's checked on a little bit here. You know, you can't, even building these events, you're not going to be able to get people to come out that, but they have to be fun. You know what I mean? You're going to have to make things fun, and maybe some food to go along with it, some free food. That generally, hey, and it might be afterwards after you do any little bit of training or talking, maybe some beer. You know, I mean, free beer and food usually bring people out for one way or the other. And I think that would be how you, certainly in today's environment, because I've got a huge neighborhood. There's 3,500 homes in this neighborhood.
Wow. Yeah.
And, you know, in the beginning, the first few years, everybody waved, you know, people knew each other. That's all gone now, just a matter of a few years and a bunch more homes. And then I have to realize that half these people are from California. So which ones are the good ones? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which ones are the dependable ones?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, some of these people will be halfway through the attack and they're still going to be trying to tell themselves that this isn't happening or that it's going to be okay. It's not going to be okay, folks.
Yeah. Thanks, Randy.
Yep.
Khalid, just kind of picking up where you left off last time. What are the lowest cost, call it upgrades, that would deliver the biggest return on investment or biggest improvement as far as the resilience of the community, right down to the resilience of the household, are concerned? Like where can the money be spent to get the biggest bang for the buck?
Well, let's start with simple stuff. Landscaping is a good way to go. If you put in the prickly bushes, if you put in things, short level bushes that have thorns in them, it makes your house more secure. It's more difficult to get into your house. Number two, if you've got the money and it won't really affect the look of your house, if you can screw on grills on the windows, it'll keep anything being thrown through. One of the things that we did when we were in the US, I mean, this is what I did with my friends whenever we were talking about, you know, doing stuff like this. I took them out to a paintball range. And I said, listen, okay, you guys are intelligence. You guys are frontline. You guys are regular soldiers. You patrol. And I got to see how everyone operated. Afterwards, we went out for pizza and beer, and it was all cool. And it wasn't that, you know, it was just for fun. I learned a lot from people that way as well. How do you communicate? How do you react? How do you move? Where does that brain go when someone's firing at you? And that's not even a bullet. It's a little paintball.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill you, but it gives you a response of some kind. When you're talking about how to get people ready and get people to participate in this, yeah, you have to make it fun, because nobody wants to go out for a boring event. Nobody wants to come and sit and listen to a lecture. Nobody wants to come and listen to, you know, a PowerPoint presentation. Make it fun. Take them out paintball. You'll find out exactly who's going to freeze in what situation and how quickly they're going to freeze. It also lets you test your intelligence bases. Like what we did, because the power was shut off when we were invaded. We had 3 colors flags: white, red, and yellow. So if we had line of sight, the way we set up our surveillance setup, we had line of sight between all of our surveillance networks. Someone would pop a flag in a window and wave it, and we knew what was going on. We knew if they were in trouble. We knew if there was someone in the area we had to be careful of. Even if there was no electricity, we were able to see that. At night, it was 2 flashes, 3 flashes. And it was the same thing as the flag system. You have to be creative when you're doing this, but you can only be creative when you start doing it. This cannot be done on the fly once it happens. You've got to figure this stuff out before, test it out, work it out, figure out your lines of sight, figure out how your communication is going to run, figure out what's going to happen. Because, I mean, we've been through hell. Pakistan has been through absolute hell. We have had complete areas controlled by the Taliban, where you literally, I remember when we were in a surveillance post, we had people that would walk by in the neighborhood that wanted to alert us to something, would take a pebble and throw it at the metal gate. We knew something was wrong.
Interesting. Low tech for the win, right?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, you know, we can wrap it up on this, that, you know, civilian led security and intelligence for your neighborhood. It's not vigilantism. You know, it's being ready for the fecal matter hitting the oscillating time. And it also, as the guys have mentioned, target hardening works. If you look like a harder target than somebody else, 99% of the time, the bad guy's going to go somewhere else. And it also, at the end of the day, will help the authorities regain control faster if you've got your neighborhood locked down and you're not a victim neighborhood, so to speak. And especially if you take the time to harden the important parts. So substations, cell phone towers, those sort of things. And, you know, at the end of the day, I think the biggest concern that people would have here, and why I started by saying you need to consult with an attorney, because we're not attorneys and we're not giving you legal advice, is to find out what you can and cannot do as far as interdiction is concerned based on the laws in your geography, because they will come into play. There will be a reckoning. Now, on the signal stuff, check this out. So this is what's called a LEP flashlight. So laser excited, I think it stands for phosphor there, and we get it the right way around. It's the Ace Beam W10 Pro. No, they didn't pay me to do this. I have a thing for flashlights. I'm surrounded by no less than 50 at this very minute in time, and I'm not joking. These laser excited flashlights, I'm hoping that you can see it against the background back here. Look how dialed in that is. So I've gone outside almost a half a mile away and been able to hit things like a stop sign, but nothing else around the stop sign. This is a great way for long distance flashlight communication. And it's, you know, been around since Christ was a cowboy, using flashlights for comms. But I would highly encourage you to look at these LEPs. They're really, really interesting product, to be honest with you, especially if you're a flashlight whore like I am. I mean, I got to have all the flashlights. I mean, I could do an entire week's worth of podcasts on nothing but flashlights. I have everything you can possibly imagine. I'm not joking. Like, you should see the stack beside me.
He has got a flashlight fetish, folks. There's
boy, howdy do I ever. And I'm friggin' proud of it. Let me tell you something. So, all right. So that's the end of the main section. We got some cool stuff to look after here. This is my favorite part of the broadcast. I got to tell you, here we go. So it's time for the Carnival Hero of the Day. Randy, were you around since we got that? Since we got the Carnival?
Yeah, we had just started right before I left. It was only 12 days, folks. 12 days was all it was.
I tell you what, people are sick of hearing me say this, but that's like John Madden, 1987, Monday Night Football.
Oh, yeah, I love it.
I love that blurb from Carnival, and I love the guys at Carnival. I'll speak a little bit more on that in a second. I also love Steve Inman, by the way. So we've resurrected the old Survival Dispatch News Chapter 3, zany stories, funny shit, and we cover it on Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on my personal Substack. So See Heaven. So my name, as you can see, is Chris Heaven. So seeheaven.substack.com, and it's an hour of stuff. Well, I love Steve Inman. This guy is just the most awesome narrator out there. And look at the title on this video. It says one word: hero. As soon as I saw it, I was like, that's the hero of the day right there. It says so. 1 minute and 21 seconds.
Well, this is definitely not America, because in America, crooks get treated with respect, and in other countries, in other parts of the world, thieves get treated like the pieces of trash that they are, like these pieces of trash trying to steal this man's bike. Probably worked very hard for it. He's pissed off. He's like, you know how much money I saved for the down? My God, my APR percentage is just a freaking hemorrhoid. And these guys are like, whatever, dude, I'm just going to trade this in for something better. Then a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, and booyah, takes him down, and a kick to the dome as a receipt for his efforts. This becomes like a discount Point Break with Keanu Reeves down there going, I am an FBI agent, man. Just when you think the other guy got away, you're absolutely wrong. He did it. Let's take a look at the replay. Gotta love how citizens all around the world are sick of all the bullshit. They're sick of thieves taking from hard-working people all around the world. And people like this that come out of nowhere, discount Punisher, whatever you want to call it, this is the real deal. He doesn't really care. He's like, you know what, man, I'm sick of this crap. I'm sick of having to pay high prices for freaking insurance because of douchebags like yourself. Gives him a shot to his dome, and just when you think the other guy got away, well, he did score a first-class one-way ticket to Goo Goo Gaga Land.
going to get sued for, the first guy, right? Because he put his knee on his neck afterwards. That's what he's going to get sued for.
Oh my God. Steve Inman kills me. He's the best narrator, bar none.
That was hilarious.
So next one up was submitted by Rose. So this is the reader story of the day. Waking up to a semi-global AWS outage on a Monday was certainly not my idea of a cool transition from the weekend, but here we are. So for those of you who are wondering why huge sections of the internet took a shit today, it's because a tremendous portion of AWS went down, Amazon Web Services. This is back-end infrastructure. So it caused issues on Substack. It caused issues on Signal. It caused issues on a shit ton of places. And it's still ongoing. Now, AWS, my understanding is AWS itself is back up and running, but they trashed a bunch of their customers' databases in the process. So you now have all these other companies trying to react to it and get their stuff put back together again. It's huge. What it does is it shows you just how fragile the interwebs are. Yeah. Somebody hacks into AWS and takes them down. And this was not a complete outage, right? This was one piece of their infrastructure. Imagine if you took out all of AWS. There'd be, the interwebs would be like this big compared to what it is. It's a major single point of failure. Today kind of shows how bad it can be. All right, next up, the conflicted question tonight. Throughout the ages, crimes were committed in the name of faith in every part of the world. Once modern society collapsed, Rahab, a religious leader, and his followers took the opportunity to spread their beliefs and consequences throughout the state. How do you think extremists will act after the collapse of modern civilization? And, you know, the way this goes, Jeff's the smartest guy in the room, so he always gets to go first.
Well, I think it's going to depend on the religion, and it's going to depend on the leaders. Now, and I'm not picking on Islam or anything else. You can find Christians that'll do the same thing. They will seize power in the name of religion. They're not seizing power to do good deeds for their neighbors or anything like that. They are using it as a fig leaf to go in and just take over. And that way, like we see today, if you oppose me, you're an infidel, or you're satanic, or you're not, you don't have faith, you're not a believer. And they wear the religiosity as a cloak. And those are the ones you got to worry about. Now, if it's someone who says, we're just trying to bring order to the chaos, to make sure everyone is taken care of, to make sure there's plenty of food and water to go around, and to keep marauders out, that's a different kind of person. So it's really going to depend on who it is.
Yeah, legit. Randy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm in agreement there, with Jeff. And then it comes down to not just what they said. You'll be able to tell by their actions no matter what they say, which side of the fence they're on, as he just described. That's what I would say. And there was Mike. Hey, I guess you missed it earlier. It was a great hunt. I missed the biggest buck out there. And so there it is. I didn't make the shot. But Daltrey, send me a message. I'll come see you in Kerrville, buddy.
There you go. So I'm going to go before Khalid. And I'm going to say with a name like Rahab that they're probably Muslim, I'm guessing, Rahab. And I think that, to be quite honest, that these radical jihadis, their goal is to take over the world and impose their will on everybody else. All you got to do is watch the shit that goes down in Dearborn on a regular basis, and Cleet can speak to that better than anybody. So my feeling is that, thank God there's a gun behind every blade of grass in America, because when it gets to the point where people have nothing and have nothing to lose, they become very scary people. And God forbid that it comes down to that. But I think if these jihadis end up in that situation, that you will see all hell break out in America. That's just my prediction. Khalid, you get final say, buddy.
Yeah, here's the thing. When you call them radical extremists or religious extremists, there's only one solution. I like lead poisoning. Because look, when you put the word extremist next to anything, they're not there for good. They're not there to help you. They're not there to do anything that's going to make you feel better. They are there to take control. Whether you follow their religion, yeah, definitely. In the car, drive by, bang, bang. Thank you very much. You're done.
We have to reach out to these guys. They're really good guys. They need to come out with Command 11 version.
Oh, that would be
There we
fantastic.
go.
Brandon Command 11.
Command
Oh my
11
God.
version. You know, this is awesome. These cup holsters are pretty badass. Everybody should have them in their truck or car, especially the one that says.
Completely agree. I carry one. I was
Command
stopped
11.
at the airport, Chris. I was stopped at the airport because I had taken my gun out of the holster and forgot that the damn thing was on the seat. When I pulled into the airport security stopped me and went, what's that? I was like, what's what? They're like, that pouch. I'm like, that's for me to put cigarettes, mobile phone. That's what that's for. He's looking and going, it doesn't look like a mobile phone pouch. I'm like, listen, you don't want me to ID you because if I ID you, then you're going to have a big problem. You've got to figure this thing out. When the word extremist is attached, he is not there to help you.
Yeah.
So
True story.
Clean the mess. Clean the mess. Don't leave it around. Because you're going to have the useful idiot that's going to join up, and then he's going to have problems, and then he's going to end up being fodder.
Yeah.
Work for your neighborhood, work for your people. And if one of these idiots comes around and says, we're here to help. Well, I've seen that you're here to help. Okay, I'm here to help. I want this much money a month. Give us your weapons. Share your food. No. You're not here to help. You're here to take.
Is that your brother Negan Muhammad?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yep, it is.
just saying, you don't happen to have like a baseball bat called Lucy or anything, do you? That's got Bob Ware.
No.
It's
No. I'm still working. I'm still working because I saw one in a catalog. There's a baseball bat that has nails driven into it. So when you swing it, you hit nail into the body.
Wait a minute. What did Negan call his bat again? Was it Margaret? What was
Margaret?
No, Lucille.
Was it Lucille or was it Margaret?
No, it was Lucille.
Yeah, Lucille.
It was an old-fashioned name. I remember that much. It was an old-fashioned name.
But I tell you what, like Lucille had the bob wire on it. If you're doing one with the 3.5-inch Ardox nails in it or something like that, you can call that Margaret. There you go.
But you still have to hit them more than once, though.
Not if you hit them right, Randy. If you put one to the head, it's game over. They're not getting back up there.
Depends how long those nails are.
Yeah, well, it didn't turn out too good for Abraham or Glenn on Walking Dead, and I don't mean to make light of that. But I want to say thank you to our premier sponsor, Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. These guys have cracked the code on freeze drying premium raw meat. So this is 100% American. This is grass finished beef, no mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines. This bag here, 6 ounces of beef, reconstitutes in less than 10 minutes. Throw in an air fryer for 4 minutes, and you've got medium rare steak. They've got single serve packets. They've got chicken. They've got pork. Randy stopped eating chicken years ago because, as you're probably aware, they've been gluing it together. It's disgusting. This is real chicken from real American ranchers. The bags are made in America. The O2 absorbers are made in America. This is incredibly convenient. Plus, for prepping purposes, when the fecal matter hits the oscillating device, you do not need refrigeration for this. It's a kick-ass product. Randy's actually wearing a Carnival hat there. Can't say enough good things, by the way, about these guys. 100% Americans. Like, these are our kind of people. If you go to their website, carnivalt.com, use the code EATMEAT, all one word, you get 10% off. All orders over $99, you get free shipping. They're gluing steak together now, Randy. While you were gone, I played a video on it.
Oh, goodness. Well, one way or the other, I suppose, right? They're going to force it down us.
Well, they're taking beef scraps and gluing them together and then trying to sell it as premium cuts of ribeye steak and stuff like that. And then it gets even worse. We showed one last week, Randy, where there was like some undercover investigation in grocery stores. They were taking meat that the expiration date was past, bringing it in the back, taking the cellophane off, pouring fresh blood on it to make it look redder, then wrapping it back up and extending the date on it. You don't have to worry about that with Carnival. With Carnival, you're going to get premium American meat without all the bullshit, that's happening.
Well, in my military service, I didn't realize it's one of the things I discovered in there, you know, most people don't realize there's a grade F meat. And when I tell people like, what are you talking about? Well, you know, there's like grade A meat. Oh yeah. There's grade F meat. No, there isn't. Oh yeah, there is.
Yeah, there is.
This is worse than that, what you're talking about. But when I was in the military, I saw the packets. It said grade F meat. I had to look again. I'm like, what? Grade F? Does that really exist? There was grade F meat for military and prison use only.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
I said, well, at least I know who they group us with now.
Yeah, no shit. It's stuff. That stuff's
The convicts.
that stuff's not even.
It was in the Merchant Marine Academy. And he said when they were loading the boat, the meat was grade D, but edible.
Oh goodness.
That stuff's not fit for our dogs, let alone for human beings.
No.
It's disgusting what they're doing to the food supply. But Carnival, they got this down pat. I mean, I don't have any because every time they send it, my wife says, "Great, we'll put that in the stash." Yeah, probably not.
I'm getting a little low. I'm gonna have to buy some more.
It's too convenient. We love it. And again, we love the guys at Carnival as well. Also want to say thank you to all of our Guardian members. We've had an explosion of members, you know, in the past couple of months. The Signal chat that we've got is unbelievable. The volume of information is just off the freaking chain. We've been making some changes. We're trying to facilitate easy access to information like the intelligence and stuff like that. So we took the Crusaders channel, which is one of the 3 channels we have on Signal for our subscribers, and we've put together a news team so they can put news in there and you can react to it. You can put a thumbs up, a heart, whatever you want, but their only comments can be made by people who are on the news team. And that way, if you just want to get the intel and news, you go to the Crusaders channel. The Guardians channel, there's wide open discussion on news, intel, and other things. There's a great, you know, element of camaraderie there. And then there's the SDENS channel, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System that I mentioned earlier. And we really, really appreciate Carnival. We appreciate CCW Safe. We appreciate all of our Guardians who pay $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year. I won't reiterate all the value adds, but the big part is to become part of an online community of like-minded individuals. It's Dr. Fabian and I were testing radios on Saturday, Randy, and he shows me his phone and he's like, I've been working, you know, around the clock. He's a surgeon. He's a trauma surgeon, right? He holds his phone up. He says, I've been working around the clock for the past week. I haven't had a chance to check in on the Survival Dispatch Guardians. 12,000 unread messages in 5 days.
Well, I was going to say, you know, because Jeff announced his, mine was 12 days. Maybe 13 now, and there's in the SDN Guardians, there's 9,168 unread messages.
Wow.
In the time that I was gone.
So there's a test tomorrow night, right? We're gonna test you on.
That's right. Pop quiz.
Yeah. So if you go to survivaldispatch.news, please sign up for a free account. It helps us in the Substack top 100. If you sign up as a paying member, we greatly appreciate it. It allows me to work 16, 17, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. Khalid and I, we got everybody beat when it comes to getting no sleep. I don't know who's going to end up in the ground first, but it'll be one of us from being run. Us, yeah, it'll be Khalid or me from being run ragged, but we love what we do. And we want to bring you the information so that you and your family and your circle can survive in these very dangerous times. That's it. We will be back tomorrow night at the usual time with the next episode in our long war series. Sorry, I screwed that up. Khalid Nest will be back tomorrow night with the weekly Command 11 sit rep. Yep. Then we'll be back on Wednesday night with Mike Glover. He's with us every Wednesday. And the next episode in our long war series is on Wednesday. And it's going to be with regards to disrupting supply lines, safe houses, and command nodes of insurgents. So radical jihadis who are, you know, embedded here and go on a tear after 9/11 2.0. But that, I promise that's it this time. We appreciate all y'all between now and tomorrow night. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
God bless
Enjoy the closing video. Thanks, y'all.